Yes, so I know you've started a lot of work. The mentoring assistants have been very active in this, identifying children with disabilities in the schools that need assistive devices. This is kind of where a lot of our thinking and that has come from. But we also want to make this referral pathway a bit broader just than that, I think. So, of course, us coming from GESS, our focus is on inclusive education and ensuring children with disabilities have access to education. But also, I think we're trying to think a bit broader and how any person might actually enter into a referral pathway. Any person with a disability, whether they're a child or an adult, and really setting up a system, a collaborative system with different ministry stakeholders, so that we improve services for people with disabilities in South Sudan in general. Of course, our focus is on the education side, and we will look at that today, but also bear in mind that sort of broader perspective that we're trying to bring in through this collaborative referral pathway.
Perhaps
So,
if I can just come
yeah.
in, sorry, I won't interrupt the whole time. I just wanted to say that, although many people would say referrals and health interventions doesn't belong with education, it's a health interest, and that there are other programs looking after this. But inclusion can never work if if this intersectoral collaboration is not there. I think it's a really critical thing to understand that a school is a place where you have access to most children. And if children are in school, it's the only way to get them into contact with services. So in all countries where I've worked, we know that it's from the school that you can bring in the health services and the social welfare services, because the school can manage it, can coordinate, can make sure that children don't get lost in the system. And children who are out of school then obviously miss out on the services. But if they're in school and we don't have a system in the country where there's linkages with the other departments and getting children to those departments and so on, then inclusion will never work. So I just wanted to make that very strong point here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's key, Marie. But of course, there may also be people, as we develop this system, this referral pathway, people that have totally missed it, the education system altogether, and are now adults with disabilities and still need to enter a system, still need access to services. So as you've said, I think education is key to all of this, but hopefully this system, if we can get it working within the country, it will serve all people with disabilities. So just on the screen there, you see the agenda, kind of the program. So we'll look at an overview of inclusion, which I know you're all familiar with anyway, so we won't spend too long on that. But I also want to really look at the actors and the policies in South Sudan that promote the rights of persons with disabilities, because actually that's what this referral pathway has been built upon, looking at those policies, looking at the key players within the ministries, and now looking at this as this whole collaborative referral pathway. Children with disabilities will not have the right access to support services unless all of these players start working more collaboratively together. And then I'll take you through the referral pathway, and then we might think about how we might respond, especially output 4. I think Agnieszka was very keen that even in this late stage of the project, and even before maybe things have been finalised and approved, that we start to maybe try to implement this pathway as a sort of a pilot, and learn from that and find out, what's working well, where are the sticking points. We might be able to strengthen the referral pathway, but at least in the last few months of the project, we can at least try and establish this. And just to say as well, we have started the conversations with the other ministries, especially Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare. We're trying to get someone from Ministry of Health on board as well. The two directors from the other ministries are working with the partner in health, and we're going to have another meeting to discuss this. We've already shared the concept note for this referral pathway, and then we're going to meet And then just also Marie, working very closely with the Ministry of Education, are establishing hopefully the first technical working group on inclusive education, which will happen on the 16th of this month. And again, the referral pathways will be a key discussion within that technical working group. One of the first things that probably that they will start to work on to ensure this collaboration, which is really key to support people with disabilities. So before we get going, I'll just show you this video, which is kind of a summary really about inclusion and what our ambition is within GESS as well. So just let me know if you can hear.
Everyone is different.
Can you hear?
Can hear.
Okay.
The 2020 Global Education Monitoring Report on Inclusion and Education believes that education is strongest when it embraces diversity. Learners should not have to adapt to the system. Instead, education systems should adapt to their needs. When students do not feel welcome in school, they are less likely to learn. This is everyone's loss. But rich and poor countries too often educate some children apart. Children who have a disability, have been displaced, speak a different language, or are poor and disadvantaged. School design may favor some students over others, as do many laws and policies. Teachers are often ill-equipped to cater for students' diverse needs. Children may not recognize the way they are portrayed in textbooks. Some may not see themselves there at all. They receive the message that they do not belong. Testing sometimes follows a narrow vision of education, and consequently, some students leave education earlier than they should. These are complex problems to solve, but a belief in the right to education is a belief in inclusion. Children have different learning speeds and needs. They need curricula that are flexible, creative, and relevant. How we prepare teachers matters. They must be given the tools and training to achieve our vision for reform. The resources we know can help the marginalized, educators, support staff, and equipment should be shared so that everyone can benefit. Better data on those left behind will help us reach them. Disadvantages often accumulate. We can't address inclusion one group at a time. Redressing these disadvantages requires funds. These must be equitable and target individual-specific needs. We must work together on these tasks across government ministries, from central to local authorities, with civil society supporting governments, and schools opening doors to the community. Inclusion in education requires a change in mindset in society, so that education for all means education for everyone, without exception. Achieving this is everybody's business, including yours.
Great. That was just a snapshot of I don't know, I can't get out of this now. How do I come out?
Everyone.
Just go on to the next slide. That always works.
It's not
different.
moving on.
The 2020 Global Education.
And I can't seem to escape from the. Oh, how do I get out of this?
At the bottom, where it shows moving on forwards, I think.
Monitoring report on inclusion.
Here, okay. Whew, right, sorry about that. Okay, yes. So how does what stood out for you from that video? Obviously, it's things we know. It's a snapshot of the Global Education Monitoring Report. It was from 2020, but it's still very relevant. Still talks a lot about the different aspects that will make inclusive education work. Anything stood out to you from that video that you picked?
Well, I picked a few things.
Yes.
One is looking at our teachers. So we are saying in this video that it's very important to prepare the teachers. These are key people on ground who will be able to help the learners. Two, the curriculum we have is an issue because it's not all that inclusive. When you look at the learning process, there are some activities that will actually eliminate learners with disabilities. So teachers are really not very aware of how to use inclusive teaching methods. And the third one that I got is that inclusion requires a change in the mindset. And when we talk about a change in the mindset, we should be referring to everybody, right at the community level up to the national level. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Anyone else got any other things that stood out for them? Obviously, David, you got your teachers, your school hat on, your education hat on. Anything else pop up for anyone else?
Yes, obviously.
In addition to what Melissa just mentioned, we also need to look at the learners themselves, like the classmates of those learners with disability. They need to be also aware, or they need to build the capacity to understand that disability is not an ability. They need also to understand that they need also to promote inclusion. So when they are also aware about that, and then they will stop the issue of bullying with for learners with disability. So when the teachers are aware, and then the learners themselves, the learners without disability are aware, I think it will at least make a friendly space for learners with disability. And then it will also apply now for activities. Like, for instance, if you are doing activities like, for instance, let me put an example of a football. And then if you're playing a football in a schools, and then we have learners with physical disability, definitely it makes it difficult for them to play, or even learners with visual impairment. But then also we also need to consider that, okay, if we are having football, why can't we have a football for learners with visual impairment? Like here we have in Cuba, people do that. And then also they can feel like, okay, we can also, if we cannot do this, we can also do this. So they can also show their abilities. Or even the basketballs, those who are, let's say, learners that are using wheelchair, or learners with physical disability. They can also play, what do you call this one?
Basketball, volleyball.
No, I think
No.
Basketball. Thank you.
Yeah.
They can also play the basketball. So through their activities, they're playing, and then the other learners without disability will say, "Oh, wow, okay, this one also can do that." So this one can give them a confidence, or this one can give them to create or to eliminate those negativity or attitudinals that they have towards learners with disability as well. And then also the families, yeah. So the families also need to be educated as well. So that when the families are educated, and then they will allow learners with disability now to go to school. Yeah. Thank you.
Brilliant. Who was speaking then? Sorry.
It was Salvia. It was Salvia.
Was that Salvia? Oh, okay.
Yeah. No,
Great.
yeah.
Anything from the mentoring assistant?
They're smiling for now, I think.
Okay,
We can move on.
Okay, you're spot on. So we've covered teachers, the curriculum, changing in mindset, very important. And then Salvia was talking very much about a child-friendly environment and inclusion in other activities, not just learning, but also in sports. And the role that families play as well is very, very key. I would say behind every successful person with disability, there is a very supportive family, very supportive parents that have really pushed hard to push their children forward and enable them to be educated and get jobs, etc. A couple of other things that stood out for me from this video as well was they did talk about data, and data is very key, that we're collecting disability disaggregated data because that informs our planning and resourcing. And they did talk about resourcing and working together. So that whole collaborative approach the funding or the resourcing not just coming from one pot, but in a collective pot, which is really what we're looking at as well within this referral pathway. That you know, it's not just going to be coming from education, it's going to be coming from other sectors. And we know that services are very sparse within South Sudan. Then there's not a comprehensive rehab structure or system or anything. It's all very ad hoc, and so we need to know, really need to know where to find resources in the communities that we're working, and how to communicate and collaborate so that we get the best possible support that we can for the children that we're working with. So I think collaboration and this sharing resources is also really, really key towards inclusion. Okay, so yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to remind us, and I'm sure it's like telling a grandmother how to suck eggs, because you're very much involved in all of this. But the main actors in South Sudan, the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, this is really, I guess, the custodians of disability. They're responsible for the coordination of South Sudan disability policy. They've got the National Disability Action Plan. It sits with them. So actually, the Ministry of Gender is very key in what we do, and us being able to collaborate a bit more with them, I think, will strengthen the support of children with disabilities to go to school. Then, of course, we've got the Ministry of General Education and Instruction, and we have the Directorate of Gender Equity and Inclusive Education, and they're responsible for the implementation of the inclusive education policy. So we're really proud now that South Sudan has this national inclusive education policy. This is fantastic, and we're on the verge, I think, of getting the implementation strategy signed. So with these key policy documents in place, we can really push ahead with inclusive education. And then the Ministry of Health, there are no institutional arrangements for health and rehab services at the moment for persons with disabilities, but the Ministry of Health, we'll look at it in a minute, does mention disability in their policy, and they're very, very key, I think, in terms of us getting a full assessment of children, what their support needs, what their rehab needs are, will come from the Ministry of Health. And then, of course, we've got the South Sudan Union of Persons with Disabilities, the officially recognised umbrella body in South Sudan. And then, but then in the States, there are lots and lots of local or state level and even local levels of organizations of persons with disabilities that will be, and if they're not part of SSUPD, then we need to encourage them to be. But these are very resourceful organizations that we can be working with, especially as you talked about raising awareness and changing mindset. These are the people that will really be able to be the voice for persons with disabilities in your communities. And there are a number of other international and local NGOs working in the disability sector. Some of those are Light for the World, Humanity and Inclusion, ICRC, the OVCI, HBF. I don't know if you know all these acronyms. Africa Education Trust, Share the World, and of course GESS is there as well at the moment. I'm not sure if I know all of the acronyms. The International Red Cross, isn't it? The ICRC, and the OVCI is, what's OVCI stand for?
It's Usratuna. I think it's just meaning, it's Italian acronym, which I don't know. Yeah, but it's called Usratuna for everyone there in Juba.
Okie dokie. And then HPF is the Health Pooled Fund again. Okay, and then so looking at the legislation that we have in South Sudan. So again, sorry?
Excuse me. One clarity before we move on.
Yes,
you
please.
can go to the previous slide.
Yes.
The previous slide. Okay.
Cool.
When you look at the South Sudan Union of Persons with Disabilities, because remember, I also have mentoring assistants with me here in the room. When you look at abbreviation, why is it PDO instead of PWD?
I think the O stands for organisation. I don't know, South Sudan Union of Persons with Disabilities Organisations, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. But I think the O stands for that. But often we abbreviate it to SSUPD anyway.
Yeah.
But
it's now, we no longer speak of OPD, we speak of persons with disability. We don't speak of DPOs anymore, but OPDs. Yeah.
Persons with disability organisations, yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, so, Marvin, it just the addition to that, SSUPD is there's no O there. They always only SSUPD, like South Sudan Union of Persons with Disability is the umbrella that are responsible for all the OPDs in South Sudan. Like, is the mother. Yeah, so they always not there. I just realized this all there.
Okay.
Yeah, because normally even in their logo, in their writings, or they just put SSUPD, there's no O there at the end.
Yeah, okay. So we can remove that. I'll remove that from here. That's fine. But it might be that not every OPD, local OPD, is a member of South Sudan Union of Persons with Disabilities. So if you come across local OPDs in your community, it might be worth talking to them about South Sudan Union and making sure that you connect them as well so that they do become members of the umbrella body. Often when funding comes to a country as well, it will go through the national or the umbrella body. So another way of local OPDs sourcing funds would be through the South Sudan Union of Persons with Disabilities as well. So it's really important that they link up with them.
Can I just say, from what we've experienced now working in the field, is that there are some groups that are not represented, or actually getting marginalized, because they're not members of the SSUPD. Such as parents' organizations. I have been trying to find out if there are parents' organizations, and that represent children with intellectual disability and autism. And I have been told by Gloria from SSUPD there are none. And then we've also now recently heard Nodding Disease Alliance, and organizations for deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities. So there are some of the most vulnerable groups that are not really represented by an organization. So when you work in the field, you've also got to be sensitive to working with leaders, even if it's local mothers that speak on behalf of a group of mothers, even though they're not organized in an organization. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so just quickly then on the disability legislation, you have the Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan, which does again affirm the principles of equality, dignity, and human rights, and specifically protects the rights of persons with disabilities. You also have the South Sudan National Disability and Inclusion Policy 2015, approved in 2016, but it does lack an implementation strategy. We have the National Disability Action Plan 2020, which is hosted by the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare. You now have ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities this year. So this is fantastic news for South Sudan. It really shows and demonstrates the commitment that South Sudan has towards disability inclusion. And then, of course, we've got the South Sudan Inclusive Education Policy, which was approved in 2021. And hopefully the implementation strategy will shortly be signed, and that will ensure a 5-year rollout plan then for the policy. And so it's important to know these things because, again, the referral pathways, everything that we develop has to go back to these foundational policies, look at what the policy is saying, and then we try to implement and pull from these policies into the referral pathway. So I've just taken a few excerpts from the policies that just support this idea or this concept of having referral pathways. I'll just read it out for you. The goal of the National Disability Action Plan is to advance and strengthen the protection of persons, children with disabilities. Its main task is to harmonise all action, policies and strategies in areas of protection of people with disabilities to achieve global standard services accessible to people with disabilities. The strategy highlights and stresses the importance of effective cooperation to foster the mainstreaming and inclusion of disability in all programmes, laws and policies. And section 3 is lots of different parts to the action plan, but there's one on physical rehab. So it talks about including physio, prosthetics and assistive devices. One of the activities listed are to promote a referral system for medical care, physio, before fitting the assistive device. And that's really important. Again, we know that we see a lot of children in ill-fitting wheelchairs and other assistive devices, and also through social welfare, providing support in psychosocial care and nutrition for specific people with disabilities. So you can see there in the action plan, referral pathways is part of that. And then we're looking at the National Health Policy 2016 to 2025. That states that the Ministry of Health shall collaborate with the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Child and Social Welfare to advocate for the rights of people with disabilities to access services and develop rehab programs to improve quality of life. They will develop appropriate diagnostic capabilities for health facilities by level to improve quality of healthcare. So there is, again, a foundation in the health policy that talks about collaboration and developing rehab programs. And then we've got the inclusive education policy, which again is picking up on referrals. Early identification, prompt referral and management are critical and need to be combined with a positive person-centered planning approach. This will involve regular school assessments and collaborative community and home screening programs, as well as equipping learners with basic life skills for independent living. Clear referral pathways will be created and, where possible, synergies developed between the Ministry of General Education and Instruction, Ministry of Health and other partners. And it goes on to talk about, where possible, a card will be introduced for usage of referral and follow-up. So based on all of this background, we have looked at this and have come up with this revised referral pathway. So again, looking at the roles of these different ministries, what will they be doing within a referral pathway? So we have the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare. This is the natural custodian of disability data, and the ministry responsible for issuing disability registration cards, providing social protection measures and assistive devices in liaison with relevant stakeholders. So, like, looking at the policy documents, they are the sort of the main custodians of disability within South Sudan. And the Ministry of Health, their role within this pathway would provide a critical role in confirming a person's diagnosis, the level of functioning, and make recommendations and provision of individuals' therapy or assistive devices if required. So, yeah, we really need the Ministry of Health to do that diagnosis, confirm the long-term permanent disability, identify their level of functioning, and to put forward recommendations towards other therapy services that can support this person for equal opportunities and inclusion. And then the Ministry of General Education and Instruction, in the policy, it talks about inclusive education resource centres. They're responsible for assessing and determining the education support needs of a child, establishing a person-centred learning for a life plan, which is shared with the child's school to ensure the environment and teaching and learning support needs are available for quality learning and progression. And then the MOGI will also liaise with the National Examinations Council to ensure the child gets the right support and accommodations during examination periods. So these are the kind of roles that we're sort of seeing emerging from the policies, and what the roles that can be played within the referral pathways. Of course, please remember, this is a draft. This is something that we're putting forward to these ministries to discuss. So this may change, it may evolve, but this is what we're proposing at the moment. And other ministerial departments will be involved as that child grows into a youth or an adult, or as we said at the beginning, maybe adults are coming in to this pathway for the first time as an adult, and they might need to be supported by other ministries of higher education, science and technology, or Ministry of Labour for vocational skills training. So yeah, inclusion, as Marie said, is a very cross-cutting issue, cuts across all aspects of our lives. Yeah. So just introducing, is there any questions so far, or is that all a bit, is that clear or not clear? Any questions?
Perhaps I can just say from what we hear, it seems that although the Ministry of Health is committed to rehabilitation services, we don't know of many such services at state level. I don't know if they're even having such a service at in Juba. You people working on the ground would be able to be more clear on that. Sorry, I interrupted you, Malish.
No, it's okay. I was just looking at my neighbors and they seem to express that there is no question.
Okay, fine. Okay, so I've just tried to simplify the referral pathway into these different areas. But the first stage of the referral pathway is that we need to screen and identify someone that has a functional difficulty at this point in time. We're screening and identifying people for functional difficulties. And then once that functional difficulty, we're identifying that person may have a difficulty in an everyday activity, they need to go for a further assessment, probably more from the medical professionals to really understand what is the cause of the functional difficulty and get a diagnosis, and to find out whether this is a permanent functional difficulty or if there is treatment and that person can move on. Or is this actually a long-term disability that requires to go further into the referral pathway? And then we're also proposing that, and this would be very new, but it is written into as you've seen, it's written into the inclusive education policy. But then once a permanent diagnosis is made for someone and it's determined that they have a disability, then the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare can issue that person with a disability registration card. And this hopefully could then open the doors for further grants and opportunities in life. We could be someone with a disability card, for instance, may have access to a grant, may definitely have access to free education. Maybe there's some other means of, say, eventually if Ministry of Labour has establishes quotas, that big companies have quotas for employing persons with disabilities, this would be again another way of counting if someone had a disability registration card. So we're hoping that this would open more doors for people with disabilities. And then the final phase, which is kind of ongoing and it doesn't maybe really end, but initially, and especially if we're thinking about children and education, there could be a referral for rehabilitation, some form of therapy. There could be a referral for an assistive device. And we're not just talking about wheelchairs and walking aids, but we're also talking about hearing aids. We're talking about glasses. We're talking about maybe assistive technology as well within the classroom. And then also referral to the Inclusive Education Resource Centre, which would do a deep dive then into the support needs, the education support needs of a learner. And working very closely there with the Ministry of Education to make sure that that school and that child receives the additional support that they need. So I'm going to look at each of those steps. It's going to start pouring with rain here, so I hope I don't lose connection. But step one, screening identification. Why is it important? I think, as you know, you've probably found from your experiences, children with disabilities may be hidden away at home. There are a number of reasons for this. There is families are afraid, they fear discrimination, They fear ostracization. There is shame involved by some of those long-term held beliefs. Excuse me. You know, so they're afraid or they're ashamed to send their children out, but they can also be afraid for their child's safety. You know, they'd be more vulnerable if they're outside of the home. So some parents are overprotective as well. And parents just don't know where to go to get help. So it's just safer for them to keep the children hidden away at home. But all of those children, if they're hidden away at home, then they're not exposed. They're losing access to education and health and other services that may be able to support them. And it would actually, if they're out of school, they could be more at risk of harm from neglect. If no one knows about them, they could be at risk of harm. So it's really important that we do this early screening and identification. And even for children that are already enrolled in school, they may have a hidden disability, may not have actually been picked up by anyone, but they are beginning to struggle or find challenges in the classroom. So it's important that that child is also screened for disability or functional difficulty to ensure that they get the support that they need. How is this screening done? Well, actually, the screening could be done by anybody in the community, we're saying. Often it might get picked up by the teachers in the classroom as a first point, but it could be picked up by health workers as the child is taken to the clinic for immunizations or checkups. You know, it might be spotted there, but any other kind of worker, community-based rehab worker, anyone in the community, I don't know what you have, community development assistants, social workers, anyone could actually be in contact with the family and identify that perhaps this child has some difficulty fulfilling everyday activities. And so the tool that we've introduced within the education system is the Washington Group questions. I think also the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare have also adopting this, and Health Pool Fund as well, I know, have also adopted the Washington Group questions. So it seems to be a very relevant and consistent kind of tool that we can use at the grassroots level to identify or to screen for and identify children with functional difficulties. And those are children that are going to be most at risk from to exclusion in the community. Okay. I'm saying here use Form A. So at the moment, there is no form as such for this system for everyone to use in the community. In GESS, we've introduced the pupil administration tool, the register. And so within that PAR tool, we have introduced the Washington Group questions. That is how GESS is doing it. But if it was for another worker, any community worker, we need maybe a tool that everybody can use consistently. So I have drafted a Form A, which I've sent, David, I've sent it to you by email this morning. I can show it on the screen, I guess. I can do that in a minute. Very simple form with the Washington Group questions on it. And any child that as you go through the form, if anyone has a tick in either they have some difficulty, a lot of difficulty, or cannot do at all in just one domain, one functional difficulty in at least one domain, then I think in South Sudan we would say that this child has a disability. And so once we've done that form, completed that form, we're suggesting in the referral pathway that this form would go to the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare. So your local, maybe your local social worker, or your district office for social welfare, it can go there and it would be entered onto a disability database, the name of the child, the contact details, the gender, etc. And that child can be issued with a unique ID number. And then we're proposing that unique ID number can be used then across all the different sectors. And so behind all of this, we do need a robust data information system. But hopefully, you know, with time, we'll get there. Let me just try and show you what I've put on Form A. So Form A, I've called it the Functional Difficulty Screening Tool, just has all the basic information there, which state, which PI and which county. The screening is completed by whoever. So I'm even thinking a mentoring assistant could even do this themselves. So what's your title, mentoring assistant, name of organization, GESS, your address, the organization address and contact number. And then if this is a child that we're assessing, we would need the parent or guardian's name, the parent or guardian's address and contact number. Obviously the name of the child. I've added adult there because if, again, this is an adult that we've come across in the community that has never received any support or services, then we would also want to do this screening with them. The age of the child, the gender, and then we can ask the question, does this child attend school or not? If they do, then we can complete what grade, name of school and address of school. Then the form has the Washington Group questions in there, and you would read out these questions to the individual and you would tick their responses into these boxes. And that's as simple as that. And then at the end of the form, what are you going to do? There needs to be an action. Okay, we're going to send this form to the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare. Yeah, you'll tick yes, and then the date that you did that. If you tick no, we want to know why, so you would add it to the comment box. But I think we need to know that this child will be referred. I think the reason maybe why you would say no is because depending on the nature of the organization that has done the initial screening, if they are a medical organization, it may be much, much quicker and easier for them to immediately refer this child on to a medical assessment for the next stage, the assessment stage. So here you would say no, a comment because we're referred to the medical assessment. But after the medical assessment, they would definitely need to send that form back to the Ministry of Gender at that point. And then if child is not in school, did you discuss with the parents the importance of going to school? Yes. And then you can clarify here as well, what is the name of the nearest school, so that we can follow up with the school and also the Ministry of Gender. If they receive this tool, they can then actually send a letter of introduction for that child to go to the school. And then person referred for further assessment, yes or no. So if you're not an organisation that has any skills in assessment, you would say no. And this form would go to the Ministry of Gender for that to make that referral. But if you are an organisation that knows how to do assessments, or you know of someone, you would say yes. And then you would name the date of the referral and name which medical facility this person went to. So this is a very draft form, but hopefully very simple. But of course, this is very open for discussion. But that is the Form A that I'm mentioning here in the PowerPoint. Is there any questions on this first stage?
Not really a question, but a suggestion.
Yes.
As you look at the form, there's a question asking that does the child attend school? And it is left as an open-ended question. I would suggest that you make it as a closed question with options of yes or no.
Yes, I think so. We can have yes and no in here, no problem.
In a lot of things there.
Okay. No, perfect. That's fine. That's there now. Yeah. And because this is important, because if they say no, then that's when it comes down here where you say, you know, you have to talk about the importance of going to school. Good. Alrighty. So any other questions on this one?
Let's go back to the last slide.
Which slide? Oh, you mean the form?
The form, yes.
Okay. Oh. Yep.
I think there's a column indicating, yeah, this one, grade of form.
Yes.
So I need clarification. I didn't understand.
Class.
So does the child go attend school?
Like grade of form.
So the grade of the child, or if they're in secondary school, do you not call them forms in South Sudan?
Yeah, we also use that, like we can say form 1, form 2,
Yeah.
but people are mostly used to classes,
Okay.
like which class is the child.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else on the form that you spotted? I've sent this to you, so you can sit and look at it and put some of these comments on as well. Anything else?
If we really want to be forward thinking, we could perhaps also add a name of the coordinator for school-based subcommittee on inclusion, or the name of the principal. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just
if there is someone at the school, you know, who is
I'll just spell principal. Is it an A or an A?
A-L, A-L.
Yes.
Right, okay. Good. Anyway, you can definitely feedback on this as we move on. So let's look at step 2 now, the assessment side of things. So now that form A will have either gone back to the Ministry of Gender, because you didn't know anyone that could do the assessment. So you send that form to the Ministry of Gender, and they will then refer the person that has been identified with a functional difficulty to the nearest medical facility to that person. So, or in the other case, if the screening organisation was already, say it was someone that worked for Usratuna, for instance, you know, they might just automatically do the referral and can go on to the further assessment. But the main thing is that this person has now been screened, identified as having a functional difficulty. Now they need to go for further assessment. So the further assessment must be done at a medical facility, and they will use form B. So it's another form that I've developed, again, up for discussion, because I think the form that you currently use is okay, but the form that you currently use is just really for assistive devices. And I think we need a form that is going to be broader than assistive devices. It needs to be able to make other recommendations based on the assessment. So whether it's for further rehab, whether it's for counselling, for psychosocial support, welfare assistance, I think this assessment will be able to make some recommendations across different areas of need. And the medical assessment, we'll look at this form B again in a minute. Once that the medical personnel has confirmed that this is actually a long-term permanent disability, they will state that on the form and return it to the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, who will then pick it up. And if the medical assessment does say that it's a permanent disability, then the Ministry of Gender can actually issue now the disability registration card. So let me just, show you the form B, and this I'm sure will need further adaptations, but again, very similar. I'm assuming that the form A would probably be behind the form B. So again, who was the referring organisation, the date that the referral was received, now the name of the assessor for the medical assessment, name of assessing organisation, address of the assessing organisation, and contact number. And here you can just add on as well, what were the results of screening from form A? So that would be a lot of difficulty in seeing, for instance, or can't hear at all, would go in there. And then again, just reiterate the name of the person being assessed, the guardian's name, and then the assessment now comes here. So what's the date of the assessment, type of assessment conducted, because again, it might be a hearing assessment, or it might be a visual assessment, or it could be a physical assessment, or a psychosocial assessment. So there's different forms of assessment there. And again, if it's helpful, we can have that as a drop down option. So those different assessments are just ticked off, and then a space for the past medical history, current medications, how did this condition start, are there any symptoms, and then that professional would go on to do their assessment, and I wouldn't know what that assessment would be, and then they would write their assessment here. So if it's a visual assessment, they'd be able to tell you what kind of you know, a level of sight that the child has, and they would put all of those technical things in there. And then finally, after the assessment, they would add what is the diagnosis of this person and confirm whether this is a long-term disability or not. And probably there's a comment that could be made. So then again, this form would have a recommendation. We're recommending that this person is registered disabled. We're recommending that this person needs treatment or not, rehab. We're recommending whether this person needs assistive devices or not. We're recommending that this person needs inclusive education resource centre. I could probably add here medication as well, or some other level. And then again, the action, what's happened as a result of this assessment? Has the form been sent to Ministry of Gender? Yes, no, date of referral, comment. Person referred for further treatment, person referred for assistive device. This could either again be the medical organisation doing this if they know, or they would say no, and then this form would go back to the Ministry of Gender, who would then make those ongoing referrals. So I don't know. Again, very draft, open very much for discussion, amendment. I don't know. See, Agnieszka's not here, so I don't know whether you're ready to replace maybe the tool that you currently use for something like this, or whether you want to continue to use the current form, which is just for assistive devices. That needs to be discussed as well. But yeah, any comments on the tool?
So the tool, there's a question for you. If you have something to say about the tool, if it's not there, we move on.
On the form, is it okay, or you have question, or there's something that you didn't understand, or there's something you need to edit it, or whatever?
I saw somewhere, is it proposed referral pathways? You talked about referral to rehabilitation, but if I'm not mistaken, I think we don't have rehab centers.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how.
Well, you have ICRC and Usratuna. You have that. At least if you have that, if they've been to Usratuna, or you see, if they are referred to Usratuna, but they say from Rumbek, at Rumbek Hospital, there's a team. We've heard that yesterday, you know, a rehab or assessment team. Okay. So here and there are a few things. So at least it's got to be there. And if we look at the long term, this is not just for now, it's aspirational, you know. So we hope in future that if this becomes part of a formal national system, that these centers will increase to be in existence and funded and so on, you know.
Yeah. This is also, and it's also, you know, because we're asking, or, you know, Agnieszka really wanted you to pilot this, and we're looking at, okay, so what parts of this work, this referral pathway work, or what bits don't, or what bits are challenging. So, for instance, if you are right up in the north of South Sudan and the only place you can send someone for rehab is Juba, then the challenge there now would be transport, you know, for both child and family. And then that's now something that we need to make the Ministry of Gender aware of? And is there money available to be able to transport someone to get a better assessment? I mean, I'm hoping that you wouldn't have to travel that far, but these are some of the comments that you would pick up as we try to complete these tools and use the pathway, that these are some of the challenges that we're facing in South Sudan, you know, transport being one, or whatever. But this is for us to pick up on. So it's not to say we don't have the rehab centres, therefore it's not going to work. It's about, as Marie said, aspirational. The rehab centres need to be there in the future. So what do we do in the interim? And we just start to mark down what are the challenges, or what is the option for us. And it may not be full rehab, but there may be some other kind of community-based rehab program that we can, at least they can get some support. It may not be the full medical, you know, full Monty, but there'll be something maybe at a local level that can take place.
And it's also not just rehab, it's also further medical intervention, medical what would you call it, consultation, because say, for instance, a child has glaucoma in the eyes, you know, it's very important that they have follow-up visits to the optician to test the pressure in their eye, you know, or if they have a degenerate, if there's anything, if they are deaf, if they assessed and they a hearing loss, then perhaps they need a grommet, they need to have middle ear infection, you know. So it's any medical intervention. We mustn't always just think on physical disability.
So any hearing assessment, eye test, ophthalmologists, etc. Good. Okay, so just going back to this, I hope you can still hear me. It's raining really hard now. I might not be able to.
Well, you're very well. It's only for yourself. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so step 3, as I already mentioned, we're looking to introduce maybe this disability registration card, which hopefully will open up lots of different alternative supports and that for people with disabilities in South Sudan. But obviously that doesn't exist right now, but it's something that we need to be aspiring to and discussing with the Ministry of Gender. But what's important is, or maybe what we will be able to do in the interim, is at least get these people registered on a system. So the name is recorded on a database at the Ministry of Gender. You know, we've got the basic information of that person. We know how to contact them again, and the ministry can refer this person on to additional support. So the card may come some distance in the future, but what we really want is just the whole pathway, this who refers to who and what's people's roles in that pathway, to start to be established and concretized, you know. And then, as we've talked about, the referral for further support. So it would be the Ministry of Gender that could refer someone on for these supports, or the assessing organisation, especially if it was a medical organisation that had these structures. But we're looking at the Ministry of Gender then receiving the Form B, looking at the Form B and going, right, now this child needs rehab, or this child needs an assistive device, or this child needs psychosocial counselling or something, and make those referrals. Particularly assign maybe a social worker as well to follow up on the child. Make sure this child goes to school, so they could actually do the introductory letter for the school, and the form talks about which is the nearest school, so that the Ministry of Gender knows. And also referral to the Inclusive Education Resource Centre. I mean, this is very draft. Maybe through discussions with the Ministry of Gender and Education, some of these roles may change. But we're sort of seeing the Ministry of Gender at the moment as being the custodian, so being the central place to host all of the information. So that is basically the pathway. There's just a few slides on what is rehab, and it could be lots of different things. Occupational therapists, for instance, that are trained to help with more functional skills, activities of daily living, such as eating and dressing. And they can recommend the special assistive devices that can help support a child, particularly sitting for feeding, sitting at the desk, maybe standing, etc. Then you've got your psychologist as well, to be able to assist the teaching programs as ways of managing children's behaviour in the classroom, and providing additional psychological support, especially in settings where, you know, especially if people have been hurt through civil war or anything like that, and their injuries are coming from quite traumatic backgrounds. They may need some of that counselling support. Social workers providing a link as well between families and schools, providing additional counselling and support. And then obviously specialist teachers as well, being part of the programme, the rehab. We've got physical therapists providing exercises, etc., and also seating advice, and also assistive devices. They can measure and assess for these things. They can do strengthening programs, enabling you know, people with disabilities to get stronger, maybe so they can sit up better, or maybe even stand to do certain activities. And then speech and language therapists are also very important, and I'm not sure what the services are like in South Sudan for speech and language therapists, but they can also help with feeding and acquiring language and other alternative means for communicating. I have a slide on assistive devices as well.
Just before you go on,
Yep.
I just wanted to say, I think one could perhaps also add community workers, you know, because I think in a country like South Sudan, these very highly specialized therapists that you mentioned are far and few between, but they can always empower and capacitate community workers or community health workers, I guess, to do that service on the ground, and they just can contact them in a supervisory position. And the other thing I'd like to mention, I mean, we can still, this is still we a work in progress. I think we should separate rehabilitation from educational support, so that it's very clear that this is the track A that you're talking about, which is your kind of health intervention track, rehab, and track B is what happens at the school in terms of educational support, where it's about how do you arrange the classroom, how do you support children in the classroom, where you don't, which is not medical in nature at all, you know, so the teachers are there. So for me, those two tracks should be kept separate.
Yeah, I mean, I think
otherwise the message you send out is the teachers would say, oh, I'm not trained to do this, so I can't do it, you know, and that's not what we want them to think. We want them also to have practical ideas of their own, and how to accommodate a child and support them educationally.
Yeah, and hopefully there is a separate referral as well for enrolment in school and the Inclusive Education Resource Centre. So hopefully that will become clear. And then there's just this one slide that just talks about the different types of assistive devices that can be available to support learners with disabilities. There's a couple of links as well to specific training around assistive devices and specifications for products, assistive devices, and then providers. So we've got a list here. I don't know if it's exhaustive for South Sudan. This is what we're picking up as we've been working in South Sudan, but I think this list will continue to grow the more that we encourage mapping and collaboration. We've just had a series of OPD engagement meetings in the different states, and these have been very eye-opening, I think, to different stakeholders in that state, because they weren't aware of one another, they weren't aware of GESS, and it's just enabled that first introductory sharing of what people do, where their expertise is, and thinking about how we can collaborate more in the future. So very productive workshop. And I think, you know, the more that we talk about disability, the more that we're looking for the referrals, where can we send children, the more that we will increase the mapping and understanding of the different organizations that are actually available, maybe not so well known, and really establish a long list of providers. I know it is something that the Ministry of Gender is also wanting to do. I think they've got plans to do this, to be able to map all of the different services across South Sudan. So people are talking about this more. We're looking at it more. We're uncovering this through GESS as well. So this, hopefully, the list of providers will grow. And then, yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the inclusion support and resource centres. So these are centres that are proposed within the National Inclusive Education Policy, currently not existing, but there is plans, obviously, once the implementation plan is out, to establish these. And I think, again, Marie is going to be helping support draft what these might look like, the terms of reference for a resource centre, and what their role, responsibilities will do, and that. So the Inclusion Support and Resource Centre is a network of inclusion support and resource centres established by the Ministry of Education in the teacher training colleges, the National Teacher Training Institutions, TVET and county education centres, universities, and and others. And these will provide relevant coordination and mobilisation, advice and expertise for teacher professional development, as well as providing support in educational functional assessment. So these are the ones that will really provide, and I haven't got it here, but there is a support plan that will be developed for each child, and it's called a lifelong support plan. So not just an individual education plan, but a lifelong support plan. And this multidisciplinary team that may be set up in the inclusion support and resource centres will be able to come up with that plan and share that plan with the schools and with the school-based inclusion teams as well. And this will help make further provision and resources available to schools. I think this will be a very key link centre between the school and the Ministry of Education, and, you know, be a real hub for training of teachers, but also accessing resources for the learners that come through the centre. Of course, as I said, they don't really exist at the moment, but what we do have, and what GESS has really established within the school system, particularly your Output 4 have been working really hard to establish the inclusive education subcommittees in schools. And I think in the absence of referral to an ISRC, we can be referring the child to the school and to the school-based inclusive education subcommittee. And these education subcommittees can be responsible for problem solving, providing solutions and support for the child's learning needs. They can be responsible for mobilising funds from the government and other sources, non-government organisations, other donors, to provide the equipment or the adaptations to the school environment. And in GESS, we've obviously you've been working hard, working with the school management committees and the Board of Governors to train them on how to make inclusive school development plans, and then submit for a capitation grant. So again, this all comes through the school-based inclusion team, developing the school development plan, and then accessing a capitation grant that can be used then for improving the school environment and support needs of children with disabilities in the school. And it's also really, really important that we involve parents and other community members that might be key stakeholders for rehab services, as Marie was talking about, those local community-based rehab workers that do have skills to make locally available resources. You've got pictures there of someone making up some parallel bars just from wooden frames, and those chairs and equipment there are actually made from paper-based technology. So it's just basically cardboard and glue that's made from flour and water glued together to make really strong chairs. So you can have standing frames and other equipment to support learners in the classroom. So parents and community members are really, really key as well in terms of raising awareness, raising funds, mobilizing these resources, and maybe maintenance as well, and repair of devices, and also ensuring that the girls within, you know, GESS do receive their cash transfer as well, to ensure that they do have access to the additional support needs. So in the absence of the ISRC, we should at least be referring children now to the school-based inclusive education subcommittee. And so that basically is the referral pathway that we've worked on, and this is just a summary visual of that pathway. And obviously, alongside all of these these steps is a very strong integrated data management system, so that the Ministry of Health, when they're assessing a person, they obviously will keep those records, but they need to be able to feed those records to the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare. And we're hoping that the unique ID number and then eventually the registration card will be able to link children and people with disabilities through this system, so that we can track what support needs the child has received, what they're being referred for, when they've received that referral and support. I mean, obviously, GESS has already established the SAM system, which captures the PAR tool. So we know about number of children enrolled in the system already. And we can from the database as well see which schools have received a capitation grant for learners with disabilities. And we can identify which learners with disabilities have received a cash transfer. So GESS is already a long way ahead. And we have offered for also the Ministry of Gender and Child and Social Welfare to come and have a look and see what we're doing, so that this system can be expanded. And I know DG Mogger as well is very keen for an integrated information management system. He's already been talking about this, and I think the referral pathway might be the one of the key pilots that could go through an integrated national information system. So I don't know if you have any questions so far about the referral pathway. Is it clear? Is there any? Can you see any obvious flaws in it?
You know, of course, if this thing is electronic eventually, if the whole process is conducted electronically, then you know, you just add on the child has this card and all this information is on the card, so that the children can be tracked. So when they arrive at one service, you know, you just check, has this child been, when was he issued with a wheelchair, when does it need repair now, for instance, where is follow-up assessment and seating needed, you know, so the whole thing can be built up right from a kind of a basic manual process later to a very sophisticated electronic process with data links and so on. So if we get it right at its conceptual stage, then it can become something really progressive for the whole country later on.
Any questions then on the referral, on the steps within the referral pathway?
No, I think there's no question. It's clear.
Okay, good. So now the reason why we're sharing this with you is because, you know, really Agnieszka felt that the output 4 could pilot the implementation of the pathway. So I don't know how you feel about that, and probably through the mentoring assistance. So I really want your inputs here. How I see it is maybe that we follow the main steps of the identification process, the assessment process, and then referral. And we're just going to try and monitor the effectiveness of this pathway. So if you can keep records of the children, which I know you already have a list of children that you've identified that need assistive devices, let's see if we can push them through the pathway and find out, you know, what was easy to do, what went well in that whole pathway, or where have we got stuck. So we just discussed an issue where we might get stuck is in access to rehab, for instance. But I think we really have to get to know our local communities really well to find out, talking to our organisations of persons with disabilities, talking to social welfare, just really improving the way that we collaborate with different partners to find out what is available and where can we push these children to get the support that they need. And through doing this, we would like you then to come up with recommendations to improve or strengthen the pathway. You know, as I've said, we still need to discuss this with the Ministry of Gender and Ministry of Health. They may revise things themselves, but in the interim, we would really love you to start maybe the process to start learning and just gathering learning from all of this to see how feasible it is. Yeah, what's going to go well, where might the challenges be, and I think in this we're really asking that, I guess for mentoring assistance especially, that you really get to know as well what other organisations there are available in the state that can help support the work of children with disabilities. So other non-government organisations, faith-based organisations, organisations of persons with disabilities. As I mentioned, the OPD engagement workshops that we held recently, you know, people were saying, why didn't you invite local leaders to this workshop? Why didn't you invite some of the religious leaders to this workshop? Because they're being a very key source of information within the communities. And we really need to establish better collaboration and communication between these different stakeholders. And another option we can have is involving the media. So we've now got very good relationships with the radio producers that have been working with GESS in the past, and they're very clued up. They've had lots of training on inclusion. But if you come across the child and we have nowhere to refer them to or no access to devices, we can use the media to raise awareness about this particular issue and see if any member of the public or the business community can come forward and support. And of course, referring to the school-based inclusion team, the subcommittee, making sure that this particular child that you've picked up, that you take that case to the school committee, the subcommittee, and they discuss it within the school and what fundraising things can they do to support this learner. So it's not all on you. We're very much focusing on a collaboration here, but we need to be well networked. We need to be communicating with other people on the ground to see if they can help push people through the pathway and get the support that they need. So any comments on this slide, because this is now about you in practice. How do you think you would be able to carry this forward in the work that you're doing?
Can I also just add that we now have these disability champions in each state. And I have not been sure what has been the collaboration between the mentoring assistants and the disability champions. I was because, you know, I think what is very important is that everyone should be working together and not in parallel. So what we can do is to send you also the contact lists of the disability champions so that you also work hand in hand. Probably you will be working together in the upcoming International Day for persons with disabilities. But to give you an example, just last night we got on the WhatsApp group, of which only Savia is a member, we got a recommendation from Roombeek up in Lake State of a girl who doesn't have a wheelchair. So Mr. Lubari from Ministry of Gender is on that group, and he then took it upon himself to tell them what is the number of the place in Roombeek. So there was this collaboration between all the stakeholders in that area to find a solution for the child in quite fast, you know. But if we can link all this into this referral pathway that Rachel is explaining, then it doesn't become such an ad hoc exercise. It becomes more systemic in nature.
All right. Yes, we have 2 mentoring assistants in the house here. We want to hear from the Andabati speaking, yeah, Marie?
Oh, hello, Andabati. Did you come? Thanks. It's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But,
No, no, it's perfect. Perfect.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I was still in another meeting. Yeah, just a few things to add on piloting the implementation of Referral Pathway. Yeah, I think this is critical for us and also very important from the perspective of mentoring assistance, and also looking at what we have within Output 4 in terms of the structures that we have, and also how these structures they collaborate. Let's say from the mentoring assistance to the disability champions to the inclusive education subcommittees. Yeah, this is a structure. We have a pretty good one here before we can even think of external collaboration with the other organizations for persons with disabilities, media houses, and so on. Just from the look of things and of look of facial expression of mentoring assistants in the house, I think there is a gap that we really need to bridge. That we have to have the mentoring assistants. We have to have the disability champions. We have to have all the inclusive education subcommittees within the schools working collaboratively, working souls together, and then we need to strengthen that coordination. That's if we're going to be able to effectively implement the referral pathway and also be able to do some of the follow-ups. Because if the mentoring assistant are able to identify, like the way they are doing, they're able to identify children who are persons with disability, who really need assistive devices, who have issues that need to be addressed. These issues need to come to the first thing within this at the school level. They need to come to the subcommittee on inclusion to see what resource they can mobilize, to see which organization of the persons with disability they can approach within their surrounding. So the issue here is that we need to do more work internally within the GESS structure to strengthen the current structure that we have established within Output 4, and now together with the disability and inclusion team. And then from here, once our house is in order, it's very strong, then I think it's gonna be a lot much easier for us now to spread our wings to other organizations and partners. Yeah, thank you. This is my thought and also observation.
Yeah, it's a very good point that you're making. It's like that there must be a mini referral pathway just within GESS, even before we go external. So what we've been doing is we've been doing this sort of perhaps informally. I think at the state level there are connections between all these role players that you're talking about. But I think that the new element that we're bringing in here is the more formal involvement of the Ministry of Gender, you know, which seems to be a more powerful entity in coordinating disability services than any that we've noticed before, even more powerful than Mogai at state level, you know. So I think it would be that all the stakeholders should get together at the state level these disability champions and the mentoring assistants and your community mobilizers with the state anchor and have a meeting, because we've heard that the OPD, at the OPD meetings that the Ministry of Gender attended. So perhaps you could then, your first step would be to get together and to talk to them. I don't know if we have the time still in GESS to do such a high level thing, you know, but you've got to find a way locally of how to link up with that Ministry of Gender. I don't know what you think, Rachel.
Yeah. Well, I think then it, like you said, a mini referral pathway. I think the starting point is when the mentoring assistants identify, well, what I don't know, actually, maybe you can just fill in the gap, is when a mentoring assistant fills out that form for an assistive device, where does the form go? Does it just come to you and Apati and Malish, or does it go anywhere else? Where does that form go that you currently fill out?
Well, that group, you know, that group also involves the HPF people, you know, but I don't know where the form goes. That's the thing. What do you say, Anabati? It comes to Agnieszka and she puts it onto the Excel sheet, the referral.
Okay, we want to submit to give a voice, but I can just say something, then Samuel can pick up from there. Based on what we know, currently, after the mentoring assistant complete the forms, they come through Savia and then to Agnieszka, and then so it's from Agnieszka that we've been having some of the contacts. She's been making contact with some of the organizations who are able to issue the assistive devices and so on. So I think we now need to understand further from Agnieszka's desk, how does that form move now to all these other entities that you have mentioned, like the Ministry of Gender and Social Welfare and the rest. Yes, Savia, please, can you?
Okay, thanks, Ndabate. I think Ndabate has mentioned. So what we do is that when we get the forms from the mentoring assistant, of course, it comes direct to my table. And then from there, I send to Agnieszka, and then Agnieszka look at the dose, like sending an email to an organization that has assistive devices and copy, and then most time I do copy Lily or sometimes Marin, but most of the time now I copy Marin and Lily. So after now, we are not yet like stable, or we are not yet guaranteed like which organization has all the assistive devices that can support the learners. Although we have numbers of referrals that we are still searching, looking up and down for those assistive devices. But we have all the form kept, we have in the file, and then we have the SharePoint. So all the forms are there. This kind of is searching for that can assist with that.
Yeah, but in this process, what you've not been doing is you've not involved your disability champions, have you?
Or the school-based inclusion team.
Yeah, all the OPDs. Yeah, all the OPDs, all the Ministry of Gender. So it's been it's just been between your mentoring assistant and Agnieszka, and she did a good job to identify all these services already. But it's not when we leave, or when this program comes to an end, there's no system that we leave behind, you know. So I think that's what Agnieszka wants to achieve now, is that we put this into a kind of a more formalized system.
Sure.
With a pilot. So what we'll do is we're having a meeting with Mr. Lubari tomorrow, and we can also ask him what he thinks, and perhaps put you in touch also, that we also involve a wider network of Ministry of Gender people for this pilot, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we have got some lists of people already involved. Like we're actually gathering these lists. We can share these lists with you of organisations we already know. But I know it's not following the actual referral pathway, but I think one of the key things at school level is that you just inform the inclusive education subcommittee of this need. And then the education subcommittee needs to now do some of that searching in the community for help. Of course, it will come down to you've got the capitation grant, you've got the cash transfer, but what other supports can be identified by the school in the community? And I have no idea what kind of time mentoring assistants have like on the ground. But again, whether you can do some local research, what is available in your area. I don't know how many schools you cover. One mentoring assistant, how many schools do you cover? But
20.
12 schools.
12.
So again, in that community of 12, are there any organizations, or in the bigger towns kind of near you, are there any other organizations? Perhaps there is just some sort of small mapping that you can do. And I would say as well, just making sure, so the mentoring assistants will share that form probably with a few people. So it will go to Xavier as usual. I think it can go to the IE subcommittee, and it can go to the disability champion. And then all together, you start looking together, you start communicating with one another to see what services are available, what we can do. But it's not exactly following the referral pathway.
Yeah, and they can then also, as a group, contact the Ministry of Gender.
Yeah.
Because listen, if I can just get with one phone call to Mr. Lubari last night, a wheelchair to a child in Rumbek, then honestly, that's the missing link for the whole referral system that you've built up. Is the Ministry of Gender have services that we have no idea of, I don't know if I'm going to complicate the matter, but I think you are a strong group on the ground, so you might as well then speak as one voice with the Ministry of Gender.
Yeah, because I think if you go back to this pathway, what did we say? The initial thing, the screening is Form A. That's kind of already been done by you because you've got the pupil, the PAR tool. Where does that go? So all children, maybe again, all children on that school list with disabilities, that whole list needs to go to the Ministry of Gender and Child and Social Welfare. They need to be made aware of these children. And then when you've got to the assessment stage, well, again, I think, the Ministry of Gender can actually help you with that assessment stage. So I think you're right, Marie. The first point of call is just all your children. You give that list to the Ministry of Gender and Social Welfare. And then at the same time, you can still link with your disability champion, your school-based inclusions team. But the Ministry of Gender is the key here. And then if anyone in your local community has an assessment centre, then you can refer that child to the assessment centre, or you keep liaising with the Ministry of Gender until that child gets referred for a proper assessment. And then we're looking at okay, so what does the child need after this assessment? And then that's another discussion again with the Ministry of Gender. And at this point as well, Agnieszka will come in again with her contacts, but the disability champions are also aware, and they will be identifying their contacts. I don't know if that's.
And at this stage, we will work with Mr. Lubari at the national office, because he would know at the state level who his teams are, As time goes on, we will start getting local people at state level, because I'm not sure this office is filled in every state, We can ask Mr. Lubari tomorrow and then give you a kind of a clear write-up. But it's been taking very long for this whole process of Xavier to unfold. It's now working well. So we don't want to confuse the mentoring assistants. We're only just adding a further dimension to what you're currently doing already, isn't it? What do you
I mean,
think, Antabati and Malish? You work with the mentoring assistants. Do you think it would be, they will be able to take it on?
Yeah, I think definitely not just taking it on, because if you look at the practical aspect on the ground, they're already doing a part of the whole process, only that there are certain steps which should be included into what they're already doing. Yeah, a key emphasis is on the issue of the disability champions, which of course they said they have not even seen them, they don't know them. Like that's why we're talking about strengthening the communication system, so that they get to know these people. If I thought the contacts of these people actually in the whole country, it would be a good idea to share those contacts, so that we also share with the mentoring assistants, and when they get on ground, they can easily get in touch with such people. The second issue is looking at these subcommittees for inclusion at the school level. You know, that is one issue that most people are not seeing, because not all schools in South Sudan have those subcommittees, although it was set as a standard. The issue is that Andabati and I train the school officers who go on ground to train those people, but you find that the school officers cover only, like as of now, only 10 schools per county. Others may be like 2 officers per county, which is interesting. A county may have like 120 schools, and only 20 or 10 are just covered, which is like we're talking about 10% or 20% of the whole number of schools. So again, we need to look at how effective that one will be.
Yeah, it's Malish, it's Malish speaking, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's just that coming from here in South Africa, it's taken us 10 years to have 75% coverage of school-based support teams, you know. It takes a long time to get every school to buy in. But if you can write up a first progress, if you have reached 20 or 10 schools per county, and only say half of them have a school subcommittee, and you try out this whole referral pathway with that subcommittee that's working, you can start writing up a success story, a success model, and then that can feed into upscaling, you know, the whole process. Yeah. Everything happens really incrementally, you know, and especially where there are few resources. But if you start getting a system and you stick to it, then everyone starts talking that same language as time goes on, you know. So yeah.
Maybe one issue that I would like to bring forward is about involving the media. You know, is a little bit technical and complex as far as GESS is concerned, because we have a policy, like not everybody should be talking to the media. For example, when we go to conduct trainings, when we go to the field, we are not like freely allowed to talk to the media. We have like specific people who should be speaking to the media. So again, if we think of maybe a situation where there is a learner who needs a support, and we think of approaching the media, that one will require the process to be followed, for example, from the communications team, and maybe
No, we weren't. I don't think we were talking of media in that way. We were talking of the radio presenters that work under Output One.
Okay.
You know, because they are part of our teams, really. Now, how you communicate with Output One and the radio presenters and the community mobilizers, that I don't know. Because I've always understood that there's close collaboration between the school officers and the community mobilizers. And that if you have like a special day, the local radio station is involved. I don't know. And those community dialogues and all of those things. Is there no interaction between Output 4 and Output 1 in that regard?
If it is handled by Output 1, is okay. There's no problem with that.
Yeah. That was what Rachel was talking about. Because we had that one story where a radio presenter had an interview with a boy who didn't have a wheelchair, and that was up in the northern state. And then the state governor heard the story on the radio, and he came with a wheelchair for that child, you know, for that. It was actually a youth, a young adult already. So I feel that we haven't probably used the radio presenters enough in this whole process. Yeah. I don't know, perhaps we could have it's late now, you know, there's no space, the radio presenters, to have another meeting of this kind. I think what we have to do is keep it simple and test it on a really small scale at schools where we know there's a committee, where we are able to link up with Ministry of Gender, where you can link up with a disability champion, and we do, just with that list that you have, we follow the pathway. That's what I would suggest. We can't change the whole country in 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what Agnieszka wants out of this is that we write it up, that we write up what worked, what didn't work. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing I will do, I've written down as an action that I will send the disability champion list to you all in this meeting. It would be really nice if we could at some stage know which schools, how many schools have subcommittees on inclusion. We've been pushing for that right for many months now. If you say, you know, you're talking of what, 20 or 10 schools per county, would it be possible to know by the end of the program how many schools actually do have a subcommittee on inclusive education?
That one is possible.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because that would be something for us to really be able to monitor, you know, the impact of that work.
I also wonder, though, maybe the starting point is looking at the list of children that have been identified already and which particular mentoring assistant were those children attached to, maybe that way round, so that we have a real case, and then where that child is, then that mentoring assistant can work on that particular case and see if we can work with the disability champion in that area. We can't tell whether that school has an inclusive education subcommittee or not, but if they do, then we work with that education subcommittee as well. And then where that child is, we identify the Ministry of Gender office in wherever that child is, whichever mentoring assistant it is. So maybe the starting point is just looking, Savia, I don't know if you can do it, look at the list of children with disabilities we have, and then identifying which mentoring assistant could be maybe part of this pilot, and we go from there, and then we link those ones up with those disability champions. Can that work?
Yeah, that one can work.
Yeah.
Actually, is the best way. I'm looking at if the disability champion can work in hand to hand or together with the mentoring assistant in this pathway. It will be better, because now most of the mentoring assistants, they don't know even the disability champions. They haven't met, they haven't worked together, so it makes it difficult. But if they could collaborate, it would be good. And now that we are approaching the season of the International Day of Persons with Disability, so if the disability champions can also participate in this event, it would be really, really great.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Do you have, because we don't actually have that list either, Savia, and it would be helpful.
The list is, Savia sent it to us. Where is it? Not in a SharePoint folder? The Excel spreadsheet of Agnieszka's.
The what?
You know, the list of the children.
Children with disability?
Those that have been referred, that Agnieszka keeps, the list.
Oh, the reports, okay. That's fine.
Because do you know which counties, is there a name of a mentoring assistant linked to every child?
Yeah.
On that list, and you know which county and the state is all on that list, is it?
Yeah, actually, we in our list we indicate like if there is a mentoring assistant sending a referral, we have a form, we have an Excel for a SharePoint where we put like if referral is coming from this state, from this county, from this.
Oh, excellent! Yeah. Just share the link with us, with me and Rachel and Lily, so that we just had. I know it was shared with us at one stage, but I don't have the link anymore. So we would really be glad if you could share it again. The other thing that I'm sort of now picking up that's also missing is, what was I thinking about? I've forgotten now. Yeah. I was saying, yeah, sorry, I'll think about it now.
Okay. I just hope we have access to that link, because sometimes we don't always have. So it would be really nice if you could just download it, Savia, and send it to us by email in case we can't access the links.
Because then we can also we could fill in the disability You see, unfortunately, the disability champions in some states, especially like in Jonglei, is the team leader. Lokuri also is a disability champion. So they never got someone else to take that on. So, but you mustn't mind in terms of also communicating with the team leader, state team, anchor team leader, because they some of them really have a heart. Samuel Kute has a son with a disability. There's someone who has a brother with a disability. So some of them have a real heart for disability, and you could easily work with them. That would be really good to take the process forward.
All right, thanks.
I suppose you have to. Is this the end of your presentation, Rachel? Or did you have?
Well, I had these, and then I just have this video if people wanted to watch and then answer some questions. Oh, sorry, I'll ask questions on it. But this was the end, just as a nice example, I think, of inclusion at the school level.
Okay, show it.
You want to watch? Yeah, okay.
My name is Avina. I'm 8 years old. I like writing lessons.
My name's Priska Donna Dimdach, who is the parent of Avina. Avina has a spina bifida. First of all, I would like to really thank you. First, you have really helped me a lot with my child's health. Going for treatment, the help for the bicycle, school equipment, specifically uniform and exercise books. I have seen the changes, especially with her education. She's completely different. At first, she couldn't answer anything. Even talking on her own, she would not talk. She would talk how she wants.
My name is Eric Mapunda, and I'm a project officer at Chamwino District. The project identified Avina as a beneficiary through our community awareness meeting. After that, we enrolled her to school and provided with her an assistive device, which was the wheelchair, which was supporting her to go to school and go back home. So at the Tanzanian Cheshire Foundation, in a collaboration with the Leonard Cheshire, we were working together with the school staff, which means that teachers particularly. We talked to them before enrolling of Avina. We told them the importance of girls with disability to be educated, and we told them that we will conduct teachers trainings that will be capacitated them on how to include children with disability in the learning process.
Naitwa Mwalimu Castori James.
My name is Teacher Castori James Ngimbuzi. I teach at Fufu Primary School. The education I received about inclusive education, there is a lot that has given me the confidence or ability for me to teach these children. The changes that I have seen from Avina after coming to school, right now she likes to play with her classmates. At the beginning, she was afraid of them. When she's in class, she likes to work with her classmates to do practical activities. Education to children with disabilities is important because first, it is their right. Apart from their disability, they have the right to education.
Kupata elimu.
My life has changed because all of the time I have peace. For now, people have understood that disability is a normal thing, and also they can be included in everything.
It's nice, eh?
Yeah.
It pulls actually all the things that we've said to you. You know, it shows all the role players really. Okay, sorry, let them answer.
Yeah, so from this video, I don't know if you can answer these questions, like where did the mother first hear about help for Avina? If you picked it. We can play the video again if you would like, actually.
Yeah, play again, please.
Huh?
Play again, please.
But and you must pick up what do you know what spina bifida is? Do you know what that is? Spina bifida. Who knows?
Spinner.
It's spina bifida. Yeah, it's a condition where a child is born with an open cervical at the bottom of the back. You know.
Oh.
It's sometimes open, and then it does affect their lower limb movements. They can sometimes not walk, or if they walk with trouble. But another big thing is that they really are incontinent. They have to have nappies, you know, so it's a very difficult disability to include, but the children are never or very seldom intellectually disabled, you know, so they can learn well. You could see with her, but she has a physical disability. So spina bifida is one of the most difficult ones to include, and people normally think, no, it's not possible. But this story shows you how it could be done. So show the video again, Rachel, if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Dad. My name is Avina. I'm 8 years old. I like writing lessons.
My names are Priska Donna Dimdach, who is a parent of Avina. Avina has a spina bifida. First of all, I would like to really thank you. First, you have really helped me a lot with my child's health. Going for treatment, the help for the bicycle, school equipment, specifically uniform and exercise books. I have seen the changes, especially with her education. She is completely different. At first, she couldn't answer anything. Even talking on her own, she would not talk. She would talk how she wants.
My name is Eric Mapunda, and I'm a project officer at Chamwino District. The project identified Avina as the beneficiary through our community awareness meeting. After that, we enrolled her to school and provided with her an assistive device, which was the wheelchair, which was supporting her to go to school and go back home. So at the Tanzanian Cheshire Foundation, in a collaboration with the Leonard Cheshire, we were working together with the school staff, which means that teachers particularly. We talked to them before enrolling of Avina. We told them the importance of girls with disability to be educated, and we told them that we will conduct teachers trainings that will be capacitated them on how to include children with disability in the learning process.
Naitwa Mwalimu Castor James.
My name is Teacher Castor James Ngimbuzi. I teach at Fufu Primary School. The education I received about inclusive education, there is a lot that has given me the confidence or ability for me to teach these children. The changes that I have seen from Avina after coming to school, right now she likes to play with her classmates. At the beginning, she was afraid of them. When she's in class, she likes to work with her classmates to do practical activities. Education to children with disabilities is important because first, it is their right. Apart from their disability, they have the right to education.
Kupata elimu.
My life has changed because all of the time I have peace. For now, people have understood that disability is a normal thing, and also they can be included in everything.
Lovely. So in answer to these questions then, where did the mother first hear about help for Avina?
From community awareness meetings.
Yes. So that would be something like if we think about GESS, that could be one of the family listening clubs or community dialogues, going through the visual storyboards, etc. Yeah, so awareness raising in the community is really, really important. So what has been the role of the project officer, or if we think about if it was equivalent to a community mobilizer, what was their role?
Or it was a school officer also.
Yeah.
I think the roles is to make a community awareness meeting, and then after identifying a Avina, and then they were able to cater for things to do with treatment, school equipment, uniform, and even training. They train the teachers about disability, and that's why the teacher was very happy after they received the training. They realized that there was a big changes, because after the training and then there was changes, the learner or Avina has been able to get all the supports that she needed the most.
Yeah, very good. I think probably what didn't come out in the video so well was but as we know that they identify the child, then they send the child for further assessment actually, and then they're assessed for what support needs they require, and that's when now the project came in and funded the wheelchair and the other scholastic materials, and also, as you said, the teacher training as well. The teacher said something really nice, about now having increased confidence to work with children with disabilities. So what role do you think that the teacher did play in this project or interaction with Avina?
Any person? I think the teacher played a very big role in ensuring that learners with disabilities are not segregated, they are not separated from the rest. They have to be involved in all activities to build their confidence in free interaction. That is why if you follow the video towards the end, Amina was actually able to interact far better than when she first came to the school.
Yeah, that was good. That's the next question. Yeah, go on,
I think
Marie.
what is quite important to note is that with Leonard Cheshire's training, of teachers, we didn't give them all the knowledge on every type of disability, and now you do this with this child, now do you do that. The basic training is what we also did with you in GESS, is to change their attitudes and to increase their confidence, that just to make them more comfortable with disability, so that they think that they can do something themselves, that they can make a difference, because if the message that you get across is, oh, you've got to be a remedial teacher, you have to have specialist knowledge, you have to know exactly what spina bifida is. No, it's more about having the positive attitude and wanting to support the child. That is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting that even Amina herself, she was afraid to go to school because I guess she's scared of what will others think about her, how will they react to her and everything. But school is such a good social platform and place for people for both able-bodied and disabled to just mix together, dispel any of those fears, increase confidence, and just be playing together. It's so important. Yeah, I don't know if you also noticed the environment of the school. Was there anything that stood out to you from the video about the environment of the school? The environment of the school, was there anything that you could pick from the video about the environment of the school?
How the terrain looked.
I didn't talk on that, but I can see like she's moving with the wheelchair comfortably.
Yeah, the school actually had some very nice ramps. They were very long. They went sort of the full length of one of the school buildings, so that the gradient was lower. It wasn't too steep. So the school had also provided access for wheelchair users. But also, again, just looking around at the colours of the school, the signage of the school, there was lots of visual materials, I think, as well in that school, which is also very helpful, very stimulating for children. Okay. And the other thing the teacher said was, encouraging lots of practical exercises and activities to just engage Avina in the school learning, which was very nice. I don't know if we can answer the next question. What next steps do you think will be needed to support Amina to remain in school? Any ideas?
I think she just need to be encouraged to build confidence for herself, because trained and then she has confidence in herself. She can even speak for herself. Like, for instance, if there's something which is not going right, she will be able to stand and speak on her for herself and for other learners as well.
Yeah, good. Anything about the wheelchair, do you think?
Yeah, I think also if you can see the wheelchair, the mother is the one assisting. So if the wheelchair could be a kind of independent wheelchair where she can easily, move alone without the support of anyone, that would be also great. Because the mother will not be there to support her, and she really needed to go to school. So at times she will be absent of the school because she doesn't have someone to support her. But then if she can use independent wheelchair, she can easily go to school. Yeah.
But if she cannot, look, she's a really small child and she might have also not such strong arms. So what we usually found is that you could also organize a pushing club of friends, That's something that I really motivated the community mobilizers to do a lot, is to get a team of buddies who would take turns to push her to school or walk with her. That's the one thing. The other thing I think that we must mention is she might outgrow the wheelchair. There's two things about the wheelchair. The wheelchair might break, so it will need to be repaired, and it's no use she now stops going to school because her wheelchair is broken. There's got to be some fixing facility there at this linked to the school. And secondly, if she outgrows the wheelchair, she's got to be measured for a new one, which is a bit bigger, because the child must always be in the correct size,
Yeah.
I think also one additional thing to the next step to do to help us stay in school is the support system, that channel need to be kept open in a way that to the parents. The parents, I think they need to continue getting the support, moral support, and also in terms of, as you mentioned, changing the wheelchairs as she grows, and also more trainings, maybe during those community engagement meetings on how best the parents can support her to remain in school. So I think more education and support to the parents play a very key role to keep supporting her and also help her to stay in school. Sure. So there's that collaboration between the organizations that will provide that, and also the structures together with the parents. I think that's a very important part also, which we do.
And also, I think also like teachers friendly with with her, because sometimes, the teacher can be, teaching, and then she may not, catch up that faster. And then so that teacher need to consider and give also space or opportunity for her so that she also catch up with other learners. I think through that, and also she feel like any other person, she feel like happy, and yeah.
Yeah,
because we
lovely.
saw she was 8. She was 8 when she went. You're right. So she might have been behind even when she went first.
Yeah.
So you're very right. And what role do you think the subcommittee on inclusive education could play?
Like especially we had a training, like in the video, there was a training for the teacher. So if that training is okay, basically the training will be like training on the teacher, for the teachers on this inclusive education or on the inclusion of learners with disability, but also they need to specify. And then this is whereby, okay, we have these types of disability, and then we have this one. So when you are in the class as a teacher, you have these different types of disability, you need to handle them according to the types of the disability. Okay, like for instance, I use my left hand for writing, and then because before I was using my right, and now I'm using my left, I may be slow in the writing. Okay, that person may be using a braille. It needs an extra time. For instance, if you're explaining, you need to keep on repeating yourself so that the person taking note. That need to be considered. There might be someone with hearing impairment that will, sometimes when you speak slow, that person may not understand, you need to raise your voice. And there are those who, that kind of balancing. So when training, when there's a training for teachers on inclusion, and then that kind of topics need to be added out for the teachers so that they understand and realize, it's very important. Not only focus on attitude, but also let's focus on
technical.
To understand the type of disability or what disability that they have. Thank you.
And why we put so much emphasis on that subcommittee, there must be one teacher who is a champion for disability inclusion at the school, to which the other teachers can turn if they want to just share questions or problem solve, So if there's one person at the school that is the advocate for inclusion, that's always really helpful, and kind of a team approach to problem solving. Now they have a question about Amina. Rather than just being quiet and pushing Amina out, get together and jointly plan, what can we do? Can we involve the mother? Look, the mother is so proactive, speak to the mother, hold hands, see where's the clinic, all of that, pulling it all together, I think, is the most important thing. That's excellent.
Good. Right.
Rachel, I also have a video that I'm burning to show. Do you think we have a little bit of more time?
What time are we supposed to finish?
12:30.
Okay, yeah, no, fine.
It's another one that I think Salvia has seen. Is it okay if I show another one, or are you in a hurry to go, people?
I just want to say something, but like any other business, so I can just say it at the end. Thanks.
Okay, this is not a long video. I just wanted to show it to you. It's a UNICEF WHO video.
Okay.
And just a minute, I'll show you now. Right.
I also have it though, Marie. Oh, okay, I think it's fine now.
Okay. Right. Is it full screen, Rachel? Or must I change it? All right. Let me see if it works. So stuck now. This is funny. It was working. Oh gosh. Sorry. It doesn't want to work now. Okay, let's drop it. Let's stop it. I'll send you this video and you could just look at it in your own time. Sorry.
I've just seen Lily's joined. I couldn't see before.
I don't know why it's not working. It was working last week. Sorry. Let me stop training. Who else has joined?
I just seen Lily was on the call, but I hadn't noticed before.
Oh no, neither did I.
People showing that I think 2 minutes to read the.
Okay.
So, okay, can I say what I wanted to say before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So mine was just a kind of a suggestion. Oh, I'm just looking at what do we do like in terms of the referral pathways? I'm just looking at if we could have like an app, like looking at the apps that where anyone can have access to with a form attached in that a person can fill those information right, and then that information goes directly to the people who are responsible. Then they can filter out that form, and then that can provide the support as well. Because now we have like, okay, let's talk about, we have Facebook. Anyone can have access to the Facebook. Okay, if we have an app with the name of like for instance the referral pathways or any a name that, okay, like for instance, I myself, I find someone with disability in a rural area or somewhere, and then I have the apps in my phone, sorry, so I can easily, click on the form, and then, that learner or that person with disability may need a support, assistance, any kind of support, and then this form is inside, I can just fill the form and then send, even if I am not someone who's working with organization of persons with disability, or I just like any other person that concerns about learners with disability, then I was like, oh, let me help, how can I help? So I'm just looking at just a suggestion. I'm not sure.
It sounds fantastic. If we can get to that point, that's something that we can perhaps consider in the next bit, is to really take this to next level. Because I have seen from experience with our simple WhatsApp group that we have for the disability champions, how effective it is to connect people to each other, So because it looks as if in South Sudan, lots of people have access to WhatsApp, But the one thing that now I remember what I wanted to say earlier, and it's just as well, confidentiality is a very critical thing that we've got to take into consideration. So, Rachel, I think at the bottom of each of those forms that you've developed, you should put a watermark, confidential, because although we want to network and get lots of people involved, we have to be sensitive to the privacy and confidentiality of each child, So it must be only the people who have access to the link that will be able to, the person who knows the story can go and reach out, but you can't put this on open platforms for the whole world to see, Yeah. So it's just I just want us to be very sensitive of confidentiality right from the start.
Some of that can be done actually in a consent. So,
yes,
when you meet the person, you say like, this is actually, it's part of a pathway, and we need to share this information with another ministry or whatever, just to ensure that you get the support services that you need. And then they sign that they're happy for that to happen.
Yes.
Sorry, David, you wanted to say something?
Sorry, David is out.
Pardon?
Sorry, David walked out.
Okay, I suppose it's now lunchtime for you in Juba, is it? Do you want to break?
Yeah.
Okay, so let us not hold you longer.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been fantastic. I really enjoyed sharing that knowledge and insights that you've had. I don't know if we're completely clear. Maybe we can just write something up after this about what the next steps would be in a referral pathway.
And then we'll share it with you and David and Agnieszka and Andabati and Savia. And you just you tinker it a little bit where you think it can, we can do it a bit differently, and then then we're more clear about how you take the pilot forward,
Okay, yeah, that I think that would be perfect. So, it's been really very, very useful training, and it has really strengthened our understanding and also given us a clear picture of the way forward. Yeah, and right up you could share with us, and then we see if there are comments and queries that we do. Thank you so much.
And what we'll do is we'll download the recording and put it on a YouTube link for you so that you can share it out with the others that you want to reach. Is that okay?
Very okay.
Good.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Rachel, for doing all this. Thanks. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.